Hi, I'm Andrew Hulshult. I'm a composer and a sound designer in the game industry and a composer on the Ancient Gods.
Hi, I'm David Levy, composer, sound designer, film, television, and now a AAA title, Doom.
So my first question is they're probably all going to be Mickey Mouse, but the first one is extremely Mickey Mouse. Who does what? How does this work? There are two of you.
I do everything. Sorry,
I just sit in the back and Rick Rubin it up. Yeah. I'm like on the couch, like, yeah, sounds good, David. Like we both work independently, and it will hand us kind of a spreadsheet of, hey, we want you to work on this level and you to work on this level, and we both just kind of we have our own sections of each DLC, so we get to focus on that and just work on each one.
Yeah, it's kind of segmented, but we talk all the time about everything, and there's a lot of information exchange about what we're doing, how we're doing it, the instrumentation, and we send each other like work in progress clips throughout the process, just to make sure we're in the same key when we need to be, because sometimes certain scenes will go there's a lot of cutscenes in there in the game, and we have to make sure I was handling the majority of the cutscenes, and I have to make sure that I'm like in the right key, so it'll flow really nicely. So I needed to know what key he was in, and we would exchange tempos and things like that to make sure that everything kind of meshes when it's in the game, so it doesn't feel too disjointed.
Nice.
Since it's two people working on it. Yeah.
Well, and I guess so. Sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing. Yeah.
Say hello to my cat. I'm sure he'll
try to.
Oh, now he's cutting it. Sorry. He'll make an appearance
occasionally. That's such a great coat. Oh my goodness.
It's cute, but it's also annoying because it's too many Zoom meetings. Exactly. So many places to go from that, and I'm probably going to have to loop around and stuff, but sure. We'll get there in the end. Andrew, I want to kind of start with you, because obviously this is your first official Doom soundtrack, but it's not your first Doom soundtrack. Did that factor into you getting selected in any way? I know there was a bit of fan outcry to get you involved, or how much do you think that helped, I guess, is the first question.
I think that the fans are kind of the judge and jury and executioner in a lot of that stuff. Any game I've ever been with, it's who your audience is and who you can sell the product to kind of dictates that a little bit. You know what I mean? Like if you're working on a shooter and it's in a certain vein of a certain genre, and you happen to know somebody has kind of a little bit of a following, you might want to go with them. But like to kind of focus in on the Doom thing, IDKFA, I do feel like played kind of a part with me being able to interface with the community and becoming friends with a lot of those people. And we're all just one really big, tight-knit family, especially throughout the retro FPS revival that we've had since Doom 2016. That's come along with that. I do feel like that kind of did play a little bit of a part, and it was just fun doing it. And back in 2013 when I first started it, and it just started out as hey, I just kind of want to do this. This is kind of fun, and then it spiraled into this is probably one of the bigger things that you'll do for a while at least. And it's followed me everywhere. So I do think that it did contribute in some way to it, for sure. But that also, I like to think that my work ethic tied into it a little bit more too, because I've shown that, you can deliver on this front with this game, and this front with this game, and this front with this game. And so we're like, okay, he's, not only can he make, the cool mod stuff, but, and, the music's okay. But he can also, hit these times that we need him to, and that kind of stuff.
And Quake Champions is a good example of that's not a mod; it was an official thing. How it's similar but not. Like, they're obviously Doom and Quake are very tied together, but how similar are soundtracks for Doom and Quake? Are there things that kind of flow through, or is it a completely different set of experiences to you?
I'd say that they're a little more different. Quake's a little bit more on the feeling side, kind of with like the Lovecraftian stuff going on. Yeah. And I like it's a little bit more on the darker, grungy feeling industrial side, whereas Doom feels a lot more like, how aggressive do you want this? You know, like, because there's a knob that says 10, but we can take it to 20 if you'd like, you know. But Quake, under the direction of Adam Pyle, whenever I was working on that was I'd say a totally different experience. We were working with Richard Long's art. He was sending me that stuff. He's the guy who does the art for Tentacles and Teeth. And I just got really inspired by it, and I was like, man, this is really cool. And listening to Chris Vrenna's work that he did with it, I was like, how can I complement this in a completely different way? You know what I mean? Like something that still fits in the universe, but still works and isn't just a carbon copy of what's come before it. And it was just more about feelings and how can I pull emotions. And I feel like you can kind of feel that from track to track. Yeah, everybody likes to go over to Dimension of the Doomed and they're like, yeah, metal, you know. But if you go over to the other 3 tracks, there's a lot of stuff that'll start kind of pulling strings. Like there's some of that stuff I'm like, oh man, that's definitely pulling some emotional strings for me whenever I was done. And I really like that. Like if you're winning or losing, it's doing a little bit of that back and forth. But yeah, Doom is a lot more aggressive, in your face, but also you have to keep a pace with it to where even whenever you're walking around, you feel like a badass, you know, because that's Doom guy is. He's a badass.
That was a Lovecraft point and a point at David's cat, who is equally as gorgeous as my own, just for the record.
The gorgeous one is here. He's white. I don't want to move him right now. He's beautiful. He's so comfy. I don't want to pick him up.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Now, this might be a gross assumption, and tell me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but I feel like metal's kind of like your playground. I feel like that's where you're comfortable composing. Is that accurate, or is that me just being like a complete asshole?
No, like it's fair to assume that for sure. Like, I mean, I'm really good at it. Hold on. No. Sounds like I'm an asshole.
Do not be humble. No. That's awesome. That is very metal. Take it.
Apparently, I'm okay at it. You know, like I have a grasp on what people enjoy about the genre, and I know what I like, and I just, you know, I just got a big filter. I kind of try to figure out, you know, hey, what's something that I haven't heard that, you know, my friend likes that he can show me that I can then, you know, take into the filter and kind of go, all right, let's put this now into the metal for this soundtrack, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's a fair assessment, but really I like to branch out more too. Like the medieval stuff that I'm doing right now is completely different. It's all synth and strings based. So is Wrath. Wrath is very heavy into ambience and very moody. And I'd say Quake's actually a little bit different too. Like we were saying, Quake has a lot more of those feelings to it. And there's another game coming down the pipe in a couple of years that it's completely different than anything else. So, you know, while I really love this and I'll champion it all day long, no problem. You want some drums and some big ass fucking guitars, you know, let's go. I don't mind stepping out and trying new things, because as an artist, if you don't do that, your environment starts to become toxic. Like you have to go out and try new things.
And David, looking at the posters behind you, like knowing about Genlock and Ruby, obviously Doom is quite a different thing than straight up metal. Is where's your comfort zone? Are you equally happy to be able to jump between things, or like what drew you to Doom Eternal, I guess is the question.
I don't have a comfort zone. I'm uncomfortable at every project I start. Doesn't matter what it is, if it's orchestral, if it's something like Doom. It's just knowing what the sound is, what it needs to be, and getting there one way or another. This is definitely the most aggressive thing I've ever worked on. I feel like a lot of the tools that I used and a lot of techniques and stuff that I used in Genlock were just amplified by 100 on Doom. All the synth work that I've done on Genlock seemed like a walk in the park in comparison to what needed to be done on Doom. And that's a funny thing with Doom, is it doesn't matter how much you think you're pushing your gear and your sounds, it's never enough. You can always go more. It's a beautiful thing, and it could also be crippling at times because it's like, am I hitting it hard enough? So yeah, to answer your question, it is vastly different from when I worked before, but also like the whole middle and aggression thing is kind of stuff I grew up on. I've been listening to stuff since forever. I'm a drummer, and I'm all about rhythms and all about heavy stuff, and it's like all those riffs and things are in the back of my head for as long as I can remember. And in Doom, I could just unleash it, which was a lot of fun. And things came out of me that I didn't know I was able to do, which is always surprising. If it's up, or if it's up to the quality that everyone's expecting, I hope it is. But it was definitely a lot of fun to work on this. It's challenging. It was fun. It was terrifying. It was everything in one.
And I guess something that you might not be as used to. Again, if I'm over generalizing, just yell at me, please. A lot of the Rooster Teeth stuff is scripted. It's set. It's this much time happens. There's a thing we need to fill in this much space. Where obviously a video game, there's cutscenes that do that, but there's the gameplay in general, which anything can happen.
Yeah.
How do you pivot? God, that's such a pandemic word.
It's true.
How do you pivot into that?
No, it's true. It is very different. Like, because I come from television and film, and in television and film, you get a scene, and you obviously, after you acknowledge what the scene is and what emotions you're supposed to invoke, you go at it and you have it. It's 3.5 minutes. You have to hit this emotion, start playing, see how it affects everything, and you get feedback instantly as you're writing it, what it's doing and how it's doing it. Now in games, this was my first AAA title. I've worked on other games, but nothing to this scope, nothing this magnitude. And the way the music works in this game is you gotta write in 3 different layers of intensity. You got ambient music, you got light combat and heavy combat, and each section or each layer will have let's say 5 minutes of music. But you're writing a 5-minute long track that needs to be segmented into many pieces that will be shuffled around by the engine, so the player always gets a fresh take and a fresh feel when they play it, because they never hear the music the same way, which is very different from film, because in film you write it from start to end, you're done. And here you have to see, all right, is the beginning going to work with part 4 out of 7, and is the end going to work if you insert it in the middle? So it needs to be modular, and it needs to sound like fluid, and needs to work no matter what. So that for me was a little hard to wrap my brain around at first. And but once we got into it, I think I got the hang of it. And also you have that within all those moving pieces within just one layer of intensity. You have to make sure that those will flow into the light combat and the ambient stuff. So everything needs to work together, which is incredibly challenging. So in that sense, it was very different from writing for film. Yeah. Andrew, if you have anything to add, please. I don't want to.
I mean, you hit all the nails on the head right there. That's all the points.
Oh, we're done. Interview over. Setting the stage, background questions kind of complete, like on to Doom now. And there's probably like 50 ways to tackle this. So I'm just going to kind of start where I think so, and feel free to both answer, to throw it to one another, whatever you want to do. And I don't want to talk about like why Mick Gordon is obviously not doing the DLC composition, but he did the base game. I guess I'm curious to how much that factors into what you guys had to do. If there's like core Doom tenets that are just like accepted by everyone, or if there are core Doom tenets that are like passed down from id being like, you must do this. Like how much of that did you have to factor in before you even get into like the 2 collaborators thing? How much of that stuff did you have to factor into what you guys were doing for the DLC?
They gave us, it pretty much gave us a clean slate whenever we started. Whenever they contacted us, we one of the first things that they made sure to tell us was, hey, we want your vision of Doom. It doesn't have to sound a certain way. We want you to have creative free reign on whatever you're making. But of course, that being said, as an artist, you absolutely want to respect what came before you. And I love 2016's and Eternal's soundtracks. Like, they're awesome. Mick has some amazing stuff even before that too. His Killer Instinct stuff is great.
Yeah.
I'm a fan myself. I know David is as well. Yeah, they gave us free reign, and I know that me and David had a couple talks about it where we were like, we really wanted to respect what had come before us, because it's a part of the IP on what's come for it with 2 games prior, right? So you have Eternal and you have 2016 that both have a very unique approach to music, both a little bit different from each other, but still in the same core concept. And we were like, okay, cool. How do we take this and build on it, but also put our own spin on it and our own creative touch on things? And how would you do this, And it was really cool about it. They were like, yeah, all right on. You do whatever you want. And since we're both fans of it, I think that we did the closest that we could, like going back and forth and sharing files, like, hey, what do you think of this? How do you think of that? What do you think of that? I think that we QA'd it between each other enough to where things came out to where we like it, and we think a lot of other people will like it as well.
Yeah.
Nice. So was it kind of the case of the two of you sat down and said it has to have A, B, and C, or one of you recorded a thing and said this is what I'm thinking, and you just built upon it? Like how did you get it from? How'd you do it?
No, it was totally. Oh, you mean just in general? Well, I think it's kind of what Andrew was saying. Like we were inspired by what came before us, but we also were hired to do our own thing with respect to what was done before. So that's always in the back of our heads. And then we're kind of building on that because with the aggression and the certain elements that the Doom music almost kind of asks for. So we're hitting those, but in our own way, with our own twist on it.
Yeah, whether that comes with like a synthesizer or guitar or something to start with. Right. It can be anything.
But we never sat down and said, oh, we need this and that. But there's certain things, certain elements that we both knew that we got to hit. And, it's the aggressive synths and the heavy drums and the guitars and just the overall kind of raw, aggressive emotion that was established so well in the first couple games.
Yeah.
Are there like certain segments or themes or styles that like either each of you can kind of like take credit for and own as like, yeah, that this is my addition, this is my like signature element of this soundtrack?
That's a good question. The one that comes to mind for me, like, and it's not really like a signature thing per se, but it's the fact that like I was able to kind of work in with the bass to make it sound real like muddy and swampy for Blood Swamps. And like some of those big bends, I was just like, all I could think was like, if you're just walking through swamps of blood, what are the guitar riffs supposed to sound like? You know what I mean? So like that, just some casual everyday thoughts, but exactly. Especially if you're driving on the freeway. but like, if, that was like, I think the one thing between the 2 DLCs where I was like, oh, that was kind of neat how that worked out. It doesn't always work out like that. But whenever you get some really interesting assets that, kind of clicks from artist to artist, that's when those moments happen, but it doesn't always happen. But that was pretty cool for me. What about you, David? Do you have anything like that?
I guess kind of similar in a way with Atlantica.
I was going to say, I think I hear something in Atlantica.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, the whole oil rig, I started by just the whole rhythm thing. There's a lot of metallic elements in it, like pipes and such, just kind of embodying the surroundings. And then, just all the synth work and everything that came along with it to complement and enhance the visuals. But other than that, I mean, just kind of playing off of whatever we have.
Now, again, I'm probably grossly oversimplifying, and just tell me off if I am. But if you think about Doom and you think about Doom soundtracks, it's like like intense guitar. Like you don't think, just act. Don't pause. Don't stop. Keep going. Do you have the chance to get to build in other like what's the word I want? Not notes, but like the light to the dark, the quiet, the calm, the relaxing to the super high intensity. Am I just completely overlooking
no,
those?
For sure.
Those
No,
points?
yeah. No, we got that. Yeah, all the ambient stuff. That's the beauty of this game. Is like you do have to write in 3 different intensities. So when you scavenge around and when there's no fighting, really, it's all ambient music, and there's a whole suite of music for that.
Yep.
And then there's the light combat, which is a little heavier, and then the heavy combat, which is as heavy as it gets, and that's all those riffs that you're referring to. And also, for myself, I was doing the majority of the cutscenes, so that was also a lot of fun because they hit different emotions all the time. So I was able to play more into like the ambient stuff as well, which is not like song driven really, because it's more of a score, because I'm scoring a 2-picture. And I know, Andrew, you've done a few of those as well, so I'm sure you can do that as well.
Yeah, like whenever it's the cutscene stuff, that's kind of the moments where you can kind of pull on the emotional strings if you really want to, per se. I say emotional. There's only a few emotions to do.
Intestines and emotions.
Yeah, you're pulling at the intestines of the player. Yeah. No, but that's some of the more musically dynamic parts that you're thinking of, I think, whenever you ask that question. So there's moments like that. But in terms of what David was talking about with engine, like you can go from an area where there's no one around. You want to make sure that the experience is still has pace and still has feeling, trying to tell you, hey, maybe you should keep moving. The music's trying to tell you to keep moving, other than the green arrows or the green lights everywhere, but like the ambient stuff still has to keep a pace and still has to keep you moving, but also you want it to kind of showcase what's around you as well. Like you kind of build it to the art that's surrounding you rather than just kind of in a vacuum. So I'd say that that's also part of the a little bit more dynamic portion of it, is some of the ambient stuff. Light combat and heavy combat's mainly for, I need to rip your arm off as fast as I can and hit you with it.
Yeah. The funny thing about go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
The funny thing about those layers is, like, at least for me, like I was really struggling with the light combat stuff, because it's a weird thing to hit.
It is. It's probably the most difficult.
It was, and I didn't think that. Like the ambient, okay, you can hit the ambient, that's no problem, and we can hit the heavy. We know that.
Finding that middle zone.
The middle zone is very strange because it needs to be hard enough to drive you, but it can't be too driving. So that was kind of challenging. It was kind of like, that was kind of a curveball for me. I didn't expect it to be as challenging as it was. Just a little side note about the different things that we have to hit. And
I think with each level it was like that. We were both like, is the light combat good enough? Is the light combat good enough? And we'd bounce it back and forth with Chad Mossholder, and he was, if there was anything that he was like, hey, maybe think about something else here, or tweak that.
Right.
But for the most part, like it was, we were cool with most things that we handed in.
Yeah.
Does the toughest to compose mean the most rewarding in the end, or is it like, I just hated light combat and it was so much more fun to do the heavy stuff? What did you enjoy the most? Each of you, obviously.
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't like I hate doing this or anything like that. It was more like it was like.
Was it challenging?
It was just mentally challenging. It was like somebody asking you a question that you're just like, I have no answer for that, and I really need to think about that. Like you can come to a conclusion, no problem.
Yeah.
But you got to make sure it's the right conclusion. That's all.
Right.
I think that like I enjoyed the heavy combat the most throughout the entire thing because it's bread and butter through Doom, and the further along that we got, like the more sound design that Chad kind of was like, hey, maybe try this, maybe try that. And David started kind of pushing towards as well, started saying, hey, you should try out this gear. I have these plugins. They do really good work for me. You should try them on your synths, stuff like that for me. Like I learned a wealth of knowledge from these guys. And I feel like that all played a lot into heavy combat. So I think I had the most fun there.
I mean, I would be lying if I said it wasn't the most fun. I often started with the heavy stuff. I start with the heavy stuff, and at least with the second DLC, I start with the heaviest, and then I went to the ambient, and then of course I'm like, shit, where do I go now? There's that middle part. It's tricky because you don't know, how much to push the instruments, and how aggressive should it be, because you are fighting, but you're not fighting that much.
You need to make them sound different.
Again, like, just to go over what Andrew said, it wasn't fun. It was just like nailing the right sound was harder than, it was a little less obvious, less of an obvious road to get to it. Yeah.
And you got to love a good PR note. Not technically, as far as we know, you guys are concluding the Doom Eternal saga. So was that a factor in having to get some of that, like, really high intensity stuff perfect? Because, that's a lot of responsibility to have on your shoulders. Or maybe you didn't even care about it at all.
I think it was just like, we just want the music to be like great for a DLC, and we want it to be a great experience.
Yeah,
that's all.
Overall,
that's all.
For sure.
Yeah,
it wasn't anything specific per track. It's just like, let's not fuck this up.
Yeah.
If it's not fun, throw it out. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. If you had the chance to return for a full proper Doom sequel, would you jump on it?
Oh, absolutely not. Of course. I mean, you kidding? This has been a dream job.
It'd be awesome. Like, working with it on the Ancient Gods it was such a good experience. Like, I've worked with a lot of developers in the past, and this is just on the same slate of, I had fun here and I had fun here. Like, there wasn't any much of a difference.
Yeah.
We'd be honored to return to future projects.
Absolutely.
But, like, for the time being, I'm just as excited to know what they would be as you are. I have no idea.
Well, from what I've heard, I am down for you guys returning as well.
Awesome.
Do you want to plug anything of your own? It doesn't have to be Doom Eternal. We know that you've done the Doom Eternal DLC soundtrack. Anything you want to talk about before I let you go?
I just learned that Genlock is on HBO as of a week ago. I had no idea.
Oh,
I'm going to say that, because that's awesome.
Where's my royalties? It's gonna make some uncomfortable phone calls in a little while. Yeah. Comparison guitars are awesome. They sent me right at the beginning of the Ancient Gods, the first one. They sent me a 7-string, and then I went and bought an 8-string from them because I really liked them, and I just signed with them. And yeah, like, you should check them out. They're seriously amazing guitars, and they've been on the entire DLC.
Nice.
I'd like to add that I'm still waiting on sponsorship. I got nothing.
Comparison guitars.
Good.
Come on.
Anything, drums, socks, whatever. I'm
hit up DW, dude.
Hit me
hit
up.
up DW.
Your Stevivor t-shirt is in the mail. Don't worry about it. I'll chuck it in there. That's all you get, though. Sorry. It's been such a treat talking to you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know Texas is 100% open. I don't know how you feel about that, but stay
safe.
Oh
my goodness.
Let's avoid the coronavirus talk as much as we can. But stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for your time. Always appreciated. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right, man. Have a good one.